All right, guys, we're going to start our last unit. We're going to do a couple of sections from Chapter 9 and a few sections from Chapter 10, making up our last unit. In this unit, we're going to talk about conversion, and then we're going to do a little bit of geometry, area, volume, stuff like that. In this unit, I suggest before you start taking any notes, doing any of the homework, that you print off the review with the formula sheet on it. And keep that next to you as you're doing the notes, as you're doing your homework, so that you're comfortable with where everything is at and how to use all the different formulas, because you will be able to use that formula sheet along with your 3x5 note card on the test. So I suggest you print off that formula sheet at the beginning, you use it the whole time so that you're comfortable with where everything is at, so come test time, you know how to find all the important information, okay? All right, so here's 9.1. We're going to talk about length in this section and talk about converting back and forth between the English system and the metric system, or converting even within each of those systems. And so when we're talking about length or distance, in our English system, we normally use the units inches or feet or yards or miles, right? And so if we are given one unit and we need to convert it into a different unit, what we can actually use is what we call a unit fraction. And so you can see all the different unit fractions here where they all equal 1. There are 12 inches for every 1 foot, there's 1 foot for every 12 inches, there's 3 feet for every 1 yard, and so on. What we can use those for is what we call dimensional analysis, where we can actually convert from one unit to another unit using those unit fractions. Where let's say we are in inches and we want to get into feet. If we're in inches, then we will want to use the unit fraction that has inches on the bottom so that the inches cancel and we can convert it out of inches and into feet. Okay, let me show you some examples of how we're going to convert back and forth within that English system. And so looking at example number 1, it asks us to convert a couple of different things. Part A says convert 40 inches into feet. So what you're going to want to do using that dimensional analysis is start with that 40 inches. And if we want to get out of inches, then what we want to do is make sure that the inches in that numerator cross off with inches in the denominator. Cancel, right? And so we're going to make sure that our unit fraction has the inches on the bottom and the feet on the top. That way, the inches will cancel, and then you're just left with feet as your ending unit. And so now we just have to figure out what numbers go in our unit fraction. And so how many feet versus how many inches? Well, for every 1 foot, there should be 12 inches, right? And so now we're just going to mathematically multiply these two fractions. So if you're okay with it, I put the 40 inches over 1. And when you multiply fractions, you just multiply across the top and multiply across the bottom and then divide. So I have 40 times 1 on the top. I have 1 times 12 on the bottom. And now I'm going to do 40 divided by 12. You should end up getting 3.33 repeating feet. So 3 1/3 foot. 40 inches is the same thing as 3 1/3 of a foot. All right, look at B with me. B says we want to take 13,200 feet and convert it into miles. How many miles are there in 13,200 feet? So let's start off with the given information. We have 13,200 feet. We want to get out of feet and into miles. So if I want to get rid of those feet, I want to make sure that feet are on the bottom and miles are on the top. Now we have to figure out what numbers go with the miles and the feet. So going back up here, we need to figure out how many feet are there for every 1 mile. And so you should end up for every 1 mile, there are 5,280 feet. We can multiply and divide those fractions, and you should end up getting 2.5 miles. There are 2.5 miles for every 13,200 feet. Making sure you not only show me all of your work with your dimensional analysis, but you show me your answer with correct units. So don't just say 2.5, make sure you tell me that it's 2.5 miles. Okay? Last one, why don't you pause the video, try this one, and see if you get the same answer as me. Again, making sure you show me all of your work nice and neat so I can give you all your credit so I know exactly what you're doing to earn all of your points. All right, I'm going to start with 9 inches. I want to get rid of inches and convert it into yards. You can do this in a couple of different steps if you want to. But I took this inches. I want to cancel out the inches, so I want those on the denominator, and I can go straight to yards if I want to. You can, like I said, do it a couple of different steps if you wanted to, but in the end, you should get for every 1 yard there are 36 inches. That means in 9 inches, there are 0.25 yards. A fourth of a yard is really 9 inches. Okay? I know some of you guys can do these conversions in your head, but what I would really like to see is you doing this dimensional analysis. I think it'll help later when the problems get a little more complicated. It will also help me give you points for full credit so that I don't just see an answer, I see your work and how you're getting that answer. So I would really like you to practice this technique so that when it gets more complicated, you can do them and you can get your full credit on your test, okay? All right, so those were conversions in the English system. Well, most actual other countries, most other industrialized countries use the metric system. And so they're based on powers of 10. And so when we are measuring things using the metric system, we oftentimes use kilo, hecto, deca, deci, centa, and milli. And so if we're measuring length, then we use the base unit meters. And so we have meters that are our base unit, and then from there we can get bigger or smaller by tens depending on the conversion that we're trying to do. So we have kilometer, hectometer, decameter, meter, decimeter, centimeter, and millimeter. Okay, and you can kind of see how much each is worth depending on where you start. And we need to be able to convert not only within the metric system, but eventually we're going to convert from the metric system to the English system and the English system to the metric system. Okay? And so one way to convert within the metric system is either getting bigger or smaller by tens, because each one is a difference of multiplied or divided by 10. Now, how the heck are you going to remember which one goes in what order? And so there is kind of a trick that we can use to help us remember the order within that metric system. Okay? It's kind of a silly saying, but it is King Henry died drinking chocolate milk. Or if we're talking about meters and length, we can say King Henry died Monday drinking chocolate milk. What that helps us do is it helps us put those metric units in order. So we have our kilometers, our hectometers, our decameters, our meters, our decimeters, our centimeters, and our millimeters, going along with the King Henry died drinking chocolate milk, the first letters of that saying. Okay, so that's going to help us convert back and forth within the metric system. Let me show you an example of that. So example number 2 asks us to convert. The first one says convert 504.7 meters into kilometers. So how many kilometers are there in 504.7 meters? What I like to do as soon as I see that I'm in the metric system and I'm trying to convert is I use that silly saying. King Henry died Monday drinking chocolate milk. Where again meters are the one in the middle, and then you've got your other metric conversions units on each side. Now, I'm starting at meters and I want to end up in kilometers. So if I'm starting at meters and I want to end up in kilometers, I need to start at meters and go back 1, 2, 3 so I can get to kilometers. What that really means is that we're moving our decimal 1, 2, 3 times to the left. And what we're really doing is we're actually dividing by 10 as we do that. And so I'm going to take my 504.7 and I'm going to move my decimal 1, 2, 3 to the left. So for every 504.7 meters, there's actually 0.5047 kilometers. I can go from meters to kilometers by moving my decimal. Let's do another one. Part B says convert 27 meters into centimeters. So I'm starting at meters and I want to end in centimeters. I notice that I'm in the metric system, so I'm going to use my saying to help me convert back and forth. King Henry died Monday drinking chocolate milk. So on this one, we start at meters. We start at meters and we want to end up in centimeters. So how many times do we have to move our decimal this time? Well, it looks like we have to move our decimal to the right this time twice. What we're really doing now is we're multiplying by 10. And then 10 again. Really, we're multiplying by 100. And so If I have 27 meters and I move my decimal, remember your decimal is behind the 27, I move it twice to the right, I end up with 2,700 centimeters. There are 2,700 centimeters for every 27 meters, just multiplying or dividing by tens. All right, let's look at C and D. You might want to pause the video and try these two first by yourself to see if you've got it. For C, we have 704 millimeters, and we want to convert it to, hectometers, right? Okay, so here we go. I notice that I'm in the metric system, so I'm going to use my saying. King Henry died drinking chocolate milk, or King Henry died Monday drinking chocolate milk if we're in meters. It looks like we started at millimeters, and we want to end in hectometers. And so we've got to figure out how many times to move our decimal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left. We're dividing a whole bunch of times by 10. And so 704 millimeters is really the same thing as 0.00704 hectometers. Moving our decimal and then filling in zeros with any of the spaces in between. All right, 9.71 decameters to decimeters. All right, so here's kind of important. We have two different D's in this saying, and so you've got to pay attention to which one is which, D, decimeters versus decameters. And so make sure that you know which one goes first and which one goes second, okay? All right, King Henry died Monday drinking chocolate milk. We started at decameters and we want to get to decimeters. So how many times do we have to move? Well, decameters are the first one, and we want to move it 1, 2 to the right to get to decimeters. And so 9.71 decameters is the same thing as 971 decimeters. Make sure that you know how to convert back and forth between the English system and back and forth within the metric system, because in a second here, we're going to go back and forth between the two different ones, from English to metric and metric to English. Make sure that you practice those first two, though, before moving on to the next video.